Capitalism in 6020. Thank you for my video. All on these social forms. And if you see some art, it might be enough art page up and find support more. Thanks. All right. Oh shit. Looks like another Aaron Ron system classification of the classification system is popping up. So sorry guys, just getting some things in order. Um and if it's actually stuttering, I'm sorry. So, how are you guys doing today? I just want to actually test something to see if it's actually working. Alright, give me a second. Just waiting for the playback to actually show that we actually have sound in the video. I went back and watched that Blyth video and realized there was no sound, so. And if it's actually stuttering, I'm sorry. I'm still waiting for it. Other than that, guys, how you doing? It's fucking Friday night. I am so glad the week is over. Hold on. Waiting for it. My stream is a little bit delayed, so if you actually don't see me, if it seems like I'm waiting too long for something. I just want to actually test something to see if it's actually working. Hold on. Ah, yep, it's working. Okay, so we can actually cut this shit off. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, how's everybody doing today, dogs? It's Crimson 60620 here, and it's fucking Friday. Release your mind, man. I gotta remember that clip. Anyway, so I know you guys kind of got spoiled with me doing actually streams in the middle of the day because I had a couple of days off of work, was actually enjoying myself, and just wanted to make sure that I get you guys in another stream for today. And as normal, we're gonna be playing Conan, the game Conan Exiles, the game where you literally oppress people and get thralls. Fuck it, you get slaves. You literally get slaves. And we're gonna be talking about one of my subjects where it's actually pretty freaking fun. Leftist politics and how they intersect with the current society of how things work now and how things should be changed to. And if you're in the chat, I want to actually go ahead and give this information to you guys. Let's see if that shit works. Yes, it works. And Restream should actually have the bot going everywhere, but I don't think it does. So, let's go ahead and make sure that bot is turned off replay mode and turn back on replay mode. And just go. What's up, Panda? What's up, man? What's up, man? Thank you for clicking in. I don't know if you were streaming tonight or not, dog. I see you have had a lot of growth. I see you have actually grew, and I'm making videos that I like, and dude, I'm watching some of your gaming, and I fucking love your gaming, man. So, what I'm gonna actually do is just talk about leftist politics. Yay! While playing Conan, a game that is quite literally oppress, kill, and destroy. And we're going to actually talk about, I'm still somebody who watches the Young Turks. Uh, and just because I watch it doesn't mean I agree with everything that they say. Sometimes I do agree. This is a instance where you can actually... Oh, yeah, I was about to fire a troubleshooter. Okay, cool. This is an instance, wow, where you can actually just have a discussion about what they're saying. And, yeah, I'm going to actually have a discussion. This is, so, a little bit set up on the video. Cenk Uygur started at the Young Turks. And you're going to hear some of the history. If you haven't actually heard the history of the Young Turks, then you actually should go back and watch his interview with Dogan, his father. And you should actually hear the conversation he has with it. And he has a conversation with his nephew who works for the fucking company. Now, you would say that's nepotism. Then you realize that this motherfucker's a true believer. Hasan Piker is a true believer. And to the point where it's just like, hey, young idea versus battle worn. And it comes out a little bit different than what a lot of people actually may think. So let's hear this conversation.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's me, Hasan Piker, the prodigal son. This is my show called Agit Prop, short for agitative propaganda. This is a show that is going to center around a more leftist perspective on the comings and goings and daily monotony of news. My first episode is one that some of you have been waiting for. It is with Cenk Uygur, the founder, the host, a person I'm related to by blood. He will be here defending capitalism. So yeah, just before we get started on that, how do you feel?
I feel good.
Okay. So, I think, like, one, this is fucking hilarious. This is truly fucking hilarious. And you would think that this man gets so much rope because he's related to, the owner, founder, and all that other good shit. No, like, say what you want about, Uygur. He's one of those people that doesn't care what, like, if you go along with them, he will give you enough leeway to go along with him. And if you don't, then he's gonna fight you. And, like, quite literally, that's quite literally how a lot of his interactions he's had with, especially people in the right wing, almost can't talk there. It's like, no, as long as you follow what I feel is right, then go for it. Cool. Now Hasan Piker he goes by the term woke bay and all this other good shit. But he's a young leftist. And I think I'm in a unique position because I'm closer to Cenk's ages, but I'm kind of in a unique position because I can understand both sides. And I don't think this is really a debate. It's, for the part that I saw, it's more of a what problem that you have and how do we get around those problems. And quite literally, I saw some points in here where what really made me, and I'll get into this later on in the video, but what really made me want to actually do this video is just like some of the points that I saw. It isn't saying from a young progressive's standpoint that they're unrealistic, but some of the things that he actually, the status that he wants is unrealistic. And we'll get into that. So let's go ahead and watch.
Good. Look, we're related by blood, but blood might be spilled tonight.
Oh, jeez. Okay. I didn't want to hype it up too much because, like, I'm not going to go super hard on you, and I'm not going to go super hard on, like, theory or whatever. Look, I'm not a very smart guy. I'm like a common sense, reasonable dude. So that's what this show is mostly going to be about. And then also we're going to offer some historical context to the things that are ongoing, the problems that are ongoing in contemporary society. So,
yeah.
All right, so let's stop right here. Like, for real, like, Uygur's a fighter. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Uygur's a fighter. He will get in your shit about what he feels is right. Like, for real. Like, the video of him, like, going after Alex Jones. That was fucking classic. Oh, my God. That was classic. It was about 2 years ago during the 26 campaign. That was awesome. That was awesome. And the thing about it is, it's funny because I don't think that it is as harsh as, quite frankly, I don't think that from the conversations that we see on air, from effectively the perceived relinquishment of how Uygur runs the Young Turks, he's not even controlled of what stories get put on. He's just like, oh yeah, yeah, reasons. And it's actually awesome that you can sit back and just have a debate with your boss. That more companies need to be like that, where you can actually just have a debate with your boss. But let's continue.
So let me just say, kidding aside, look, I'm sure that we will agree on plenty of things, and it's a real debate / discussion. So in the past, I've had a discussion with Sam Harris that turned into a debate, right? And then there's been debates that I've had that turned into discussions, like with Tucker Carlson. And then I've had debates that were just debates. But here I'm positive that we're going to agree on a lot of stuff. But there's going to be stuff that we obviously disagree on, and that's why we're doing this. But also, he's both being patronizing to me by saying he'll take it easy on me, but also being needlessly humble, because he's read a lot of the literature here, more than I have. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
I don't know. I'm a little worried about my my financial security and my job security at the company. So no, I will be. Well, that's actually literally what we're going to be talking about. So before we get into this, okay, before we get into the debate, I want you to lay out your position as best as you possibly can, because you have said time and time again, kind of like Elizabeth Warren, that you are a capitalist. Right,
yeah,
you are a capitalist,
right.
And I am more. I wouldn't say even in the Bernie camp. I would say I'm further left than Bernie, but I am firmly anti-capitalist. So I would like to understand exactly what your political philosophy is.
Yeah.
I would assume that you are a social democrat, right?
All right. So here's the thing, and just when I was first watching this video, this conversation right here alone had me thinking that. And this is not derogatory in any way. This is just simply Hasan is looking as if this is a safe space. And like I said, it's not derogatory at all. It's like he can actually challenge someone who can challenge back with different critiques, different points of why capitalists is a still a viable idea from everything we've seen in history about it. And quite literally, it's just one of those things where it's just like, one, he can go as hard as he wants, take it like, yeah, he's challenging his boss and his uncle, but it's like having a boss and an uncle who's a championship fighter, and you're making your rounds to get to the championships. Like, oh yeah, I can fight as hard as I want to on this. That's actually pretty cool with that. And you have to be somebody who doesn't take themselves too seriously. They can take their position seriously. That's a different story. But for you to actually like, hey, come on, challenge me, employee, challenge me. Challenge me, like, I will defend my position and I'm gonna push back. Like, we need more motherfucking bosses like this. On the real, like, for real. This is if I had more bosses like this, I wouldn't hate capitalism so much. But let's continue.
Yeah. So look, I love that you're starting with that, because a lot of this is wordplay. And so I support Elizabeth Warren. I also support Bernie Sanders.
Of course.
Oh, so 100%. So and one calls themselves a capitalist, the other one democratic socialist. Who cares? To me, it doesn't matter at all. What matters is their policies, and I love their policies. There's there might be shades of disagreement here and there on both sides, But overall, if you follow those people and you agree with them, then you largely probably agree with me. So in terms of why I call myself a capitalist is because I believe in incentives and disincentives. I believe in the free market. Now, at the same time, what we have now in America is not ideal capitalism, to say the least. That is a massive, massive understatement. So it's been greatly perverted, mainly by money and politics, but really what it's spawned is what I would call corporatism. And I am 1,000,000,000% against corporatism. And so as we talk throughout these 2 hours here, I'll explain the distinction between corporatism and capitalism and why they're actually fundamentally opposed to one another. So, I believe that the state has a role in some of the industries, obviously police, firefighters. I also think the state has a role in health insurance. And it's just a matter of where you draw the line. But I don't believe the state has a role in making sneakers or jeans or hamburgers. So that's my...
All right, so what he says here is actually pretty key. So under that system, I believe in capitalism, that there are certain things that should not have a profit motive. There are certain things that, just as a human being, like, come on, man, like, for real, you gonna try to make a profit out of somebody's health and well-being? How fucking disgusting are you? Like, really? Like, really? How disgusted are you that you're gonna raise the prices of HIV drugs or EpiPens to a point where it's unsustainable for people, and you think if they want to live, they'll pay the price? That's disgusting as hell. Like, how do you sleep at night? And I know you probably, and they got Farmer Bro for this. He actually was price fixing and other shit, but that's only because they was messing with their money. Where is your humanity, dog? Where is your humanity? Like, come on. You gotta be better than this. You have to be better than this. But some people don't. And quite literally, and you're gonna hear this later on in the video, I'm somebody who thinks that there should be more worker-led co-ops and more of Eastern European models where the company boards are half the regular employees, frontline employees, or representatives directly, suggested by frontline employees. So that'd be key. That would be fun. So let's let them finish.
My rough layman's distinction there.
Okay, interesting. Now, my POV is that we completely agree on the short-term goals. I have no problem building a coalition with Social Democrats. I think it's an absolute necessity that we should do that. That's part of the show. That's literally what we're going to be talking about here. But I think that the fundamentals are different. Where I the premises where I drive my main conclusions from are fundamentally different than yours, even though our short-term goals are basically the same. And I genuinely believe that if I were to describe this to you, our long-term goals would probably be the same as well.
Well, we're going to find out.
What I mean by that is, my understanding is that I look at this from a materialist perspective. I look at commodity production from a materialist perspective, and I believe that there are fundamental flaws within the capitalist organization of the economy.
Your business is up and running, but is it going beyond fast? Give us.
Let the ad keep going. All right, we bring it back.
Sphere time.
Come on, ad. Come on.
That make it virtually impossible to reform, and that state reforms ultimately will erode, and history has shown this over and over again, which is why I want to ask you my first question. But before we get to the first question, I forgot that I need to do a promo. This is my first ever live show, so I'm really sorry. TYT members, you guys can watch.
No, this is not your first ever live show. This is your first live show on the channel. You fucking do Twitch. Come on, let's keep it real. But let's go.
It's the full debate, uninterrupted and on demand, okay? If you're not a member yet, you can sign up at tyt.com/agitprop so that you don't have to miss a single part of this debate, because the second hour of this is going to be behind a paywall, because this is a capitalist institution after all, and I am simply a humble worker. So.
Okay, so, like, did he really just take a dig at his company? And this is fucking hilarious. It's like you're in front of your boss. You're in front of your boss that pays your salary, and you're in front of the person who founded the company. And like, yeah, capitalist institution. You just basically did a fucking like how do I put it? You just basically just like took your penis out and just start pissing all over your job, your uncle, and the whole principle of how you got here. And this is cool because young motherfucker, like, I get it. Like, ideologue, like, I get it. And I'm never saying, I will never tell somebody who's young and full of passion to corrupt their ideas. Never. Ever, 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 ever will you hear me say that. It's counterproductive. And it's just one of those things where it's just like, no, we want you to keep that passion. But let's continue.
Back to the question I have for you after I gave that.
That's his way of saying I made that decision.
Yeah, this is back to the question I have for you though.
Yeah, like, see, like, this is the person you want to have a boss like, yeah, nah, we can do it, but you know, put that as part behind the rest of it behind the paywall. If they like it, they'll spend money for it. Capitalist, you know, that's the funny fucking thing. Like, let's just continue. Let's continue.
Why do you think capitalism can be reformed when you observe and admit to all of the problems under a capitalist system, and that history has shown that all of these state reforms will be eroded ultimately?
Yeah.
So that's a loaded fucking question. Here's the thing, and this is what a lot of people who criticize socialism is for. They think that people who are socialists are ideologues and will say, once everybody jumps to the great system of socialism, then everything will be good. And I even saw a Knock and Beat video. It was like, yeah, once we get everybody deprogrammed to not be in a capitalist system, then everything will be okay, except for the people who really, really can't leave it. Like, no! People have been competing since the beginning of fucking time, and you're not going to actually program that out of them in the side of a generation or two. No, it's innate human nature to compete. Now, what we compete against may be different, but it's an innate condition to say, me want something, and if you're standing in my way, you're not going to be standing in my way long. And it's not to say that it's inherent that we need to, because remember with Skinner, and I mentioned this in a couple of videos, the three things that people really need is rest, food or substances, and sex. Those are biological needs that you need. Then it's social affirmation, and then it's, you know, affirmation of different things of, you know, but in the end, we are competitive animals. That's why whenever you hear like them people say that, you know, if there are aliens, they may not always be peaceful, because predators, like humans are, we're predators, actually have an innate need to compete. That's just how shit works. But ideologues actually say, well, no, we need to do this, and once we do this, everything. No, you have to keep fighting for things that you want. And this is the fucking problem with people on the left wing. They get to a place and say, oh, we got this, and now this is good. No, the fight and struggle is continual. You can't sit back and rest on your laurels and say, hey, we got this and now we're good. Because they will keep being eroded. If it was in a form of a right wing, if it was in a form of a state, it's a totalitarian ruler, if it's in a form of an oppressive group of people, you have to keep fighting. But it's okay because life is a motherfucking struggle. It's about what you struggle for. But let's continue.
No, so I actually think it depends. Depends on what period of time you're looking at and what the socio-political context was. So, for example, right now, why are we in disastrous shape and capitalism has run amok, et cetera? It's mainly because corporatism took over. So what's corporatism? It is rule by corporations. Now, a lot of people mistake that and thinking, well, that's capitalism, isn't it? No, because once corporations are born, they're kind of like Oedipus. They immediately want to kill their dad, capitalism. Why? Because they don't want free markets. They want monopoly power as much as humanly possible. They will then go to screw over their mom. It's another word for that.
So, okay. If you don't know what the story of Oedipus was, quick scenario. It was kind of like the Perseus story. Oedipus' father was a king, and what happened was he received a prophecy that his son was going to fucking replace him as king in a violent way. So the father of Oedipus did the only logical thing you do in these situations is you try to kill your son. So I forget how, but Oedipus was sent away. The king grew old, was like, I don't have to worry about this shit no more. Now, Oedipus grew up to be a noble man, a just man. And so he was traveling, he was an adventurer, he was traveling through the kingdom. And it was this one evil, despotic king, and he killed him. Okay. Then he actually took over. Yay, I got level 60. Then he actually took over the king's nation and became a wise ruler. And taking over the king's nation, the queen actually found a liking to him. And, well, let's just say they became husband and wife. Come to find out, that was Oedipus' father. And he was fucking his mother. So, his mother threw herself off the cliff. And Oedipus met a wise man and he plucked out his eyes and he was able to see. And so he didn't actively try to kill his father just to take over the throne, but it's when you're trying to control a prophecy, sometimes you cause it to fucking happen. But let's continue. And this is I bring that story up because capitalism, corporatism is like that. If it was whoever has the best business actually wins. Let's see what that alert was. Oh, thank you. Was that Maria? Thank you very much. I'm trying to watch the chat and actually watch this. I forgot to bring the chat up. Oh, there goes the chat. And so, Oedipus, it did actually, capitalism, corporatism, what we have now, it is trying to kill off capitalism, and it has a bastard-ass brother, crony capitalism, where it's let's kill all the rest of the competition and then screw over democracy by putting money in politics. So, yeah, here we go.
And their mom is democracy. So they will try to capture the government to limit competition and kill free markets so that they don't have to bother making a good product. They just do government capture. And it actually is a very efficient way to maximize your profits, but it kills off capitalism in the meanwhile. So that's the state we're in now because our Supreme Court allowed for corporations to spend unlimited money buying our government. That's the independent expenditures and the campaign donations. So on the other hand, in America, we actually, and of course, look, all this is rough, right? Because now I'm going to tell you that we actually did have capitalism in America, but look, it was heavily tinged with socialism that FDR pushed, right? So Social Security could be argued to be obviously a form of socialism, right? It is the state helping you to save money for retirement. And I think that is the right role for the state. That's where I would say, yes, that's on the state side, not on the free market side. But from FDR to 1978, when the Supreme Court said you can spend unlimited money in politics, we roughly had capitalism in this country, and our life expectancy went up, our health went up, our income went up, every living standard went up. So, and I can show you different examples throughout the world where capitalism has worked.
So that's really
all right. And this is actually key about what's going on. And this is different from the perspective that we had last time with Mark Blyth. Remember Mark Blyth from our last video, and I don't know how well it actually went through, but Mark Blyth was talking about how the reason why you saw so much of a change because capital can get all the money that they want. And this is when they started to turn on democracy. And you know what? Here's the thing. Yes, regulation on capitalism stops growth from as fast as they want it to actually be. But I don't fucking care because it helps everybody else except it. What does it do? It hurts some of the wealthy that they can't grow as much as they want. I don't fucking care. It's just one of those things where it's just like, yeah, I get it. And you know what? The whole needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few is a dangerous situation, and I will never actually just completely advocate for that. But at some point, when the needs of the one outweigh the needs of all the rest, we have a fucking problem. And that's what government actually needs to do. The government needs to actually be that balancing act, that referee, that the guiding force that says, well, you can't have too much power here, you can't have too much power there. That's what it needs to be. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all those libertarians who actually just sit back and think, well, the government bad, taxation is bad. No, the fuck is not. For people that don't have shit, no matter how hard they work, there are people who need the shit. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you feel like you've worked for this too hard and you didn't, dog. You didn't. You know what you did? You won the lottery, the probability lottery. And I'm not trying to take your birthright. It is not a zero-sum game. You know what it is, though? It's you can't run the whole fucking table. That's what it is. You can't run the whole fucking table. And if you have a problem with that, then I don't know, man. It may be a problem that you need to look inside of yourself and take a look at. If your only way of quote unquote winning is taking the whole thing over. But let's continue.
Interesting, and I think that's precisely why we need to go back to the fundamentals a little bit, and I need to bring in a concept here and get your perspective on this concept, which is class antagonism, the friction between the worker class and the owners, because I think that this is a fundamental that a lot of social democrats miss, and it is at the heart of all of the inequality inside of this system, because the system and every institution that is propped up within the system is designed to legitimize capitalism itself, from our institutions of higher learning to even the police force, all the way to our media, as you would probably admit. So what is that class antagonism? It's the dichotomy between you and I, the divergence of your interests versus mine. You are my boss. You want me to work the most amount of hours for the least amount of pay. I am your worker. I need to work I want to work the least amount of hours for the most amount of pay. Now, obviously.
All right, before I let him finish this point. And so this is one thing that I've always found fucking hilarious. So you ever actually see somebody like that just is like, you should be thankful you have a job. Or let's just go consumer. You should be thankful that somebody wants to spend. You should be thankful that somebody wants to spend their money with you. So you should give the customer everything they want. That purposely ignores the other side of that fucking equation. And it's just like, you're also getting something out of it. You're also benefiting out of it. You're not just giving up your money to me for me to work with you or work for you to just be like, oh, I'm just out of the kindness of my heart. I'm going to give you money so I can give you the opportunity to work for you, work for me. No, that's not what's happening. I'm giving you my time. I'm giving you my labor. So we should treat it as such. Now, here's the thing. Granted, in the 1970s, what kicked off all of this shit that we're seeing really badly right here, it was a fear that capitalists, they felt like they didn't have any control over how they're going to make their profit. I give them that. I understand. But in the end, your overreach, somebody else's overreach is not magically solved by your own overreach. But, hell, class friction. Marx said it best. Class friction. And that's why you always keep fighting for what you want. No matter how much of a utopian you think everything will be, keep fighting for that motherfucker. Let's continue.
Through this process of negotiations, you oftentimes come out on top because you have more wealth, whether you secured it through intergenerational wealth or because you got lucky or a series of probability or even because you worked really hard and then you got lucky on top of that. But ultimately, you have a concentration of wealth and power at the top. And this allows you to tell me, look, no matter how much you want to get paid, I still make these rules and that I'm still going to pay you less than what you put out for me. I'm going to pay you less than your output. That is profit. What do you do with that? That would be considered surplus value that I give you and that you take and do whatever you want with. This is the fundamental flaw within the capitalist structure. And then what you do with those profits, or what historically has been done with those profits, is the bosses will go and design and build these institutions that then legitimize the same economic organization. So that is why we have this erosion of all of the reforms that you have mentioned before. No matter how hard we fight for them, we ultimately still get those same erosions. And also, historically, this system, at every single step of the way, has always benefited the interests of owners of capital, whether it be from our founding fathers, George Washington, who literally used a loophole to switch out his slaves every 6 months in an effort to make sure that he doesn't have to free them, all the way to numerous Supreme Court, numerous Supreme Court decisions in which the labor power has been eroded, even during the time that you referenced, between 1919 and 1978.
Right. So.
All right. So again, this is actually a loaded question, and this is why I feel that again, it's not to demonize what he's doing, but quite literally, he's attacking a steel man, and that's different from a straw man. A straw man is to make somebody's point so weak that you can come and push it over and knock it down. That's different, and I will not accuse him of actually attacking a straw man, because he's fucking attacking his uncle, who quite literally believes in fucking capitalism, and who quite literally is basically one of the loudest progressives in the room that believes in certain shit. And when I say a safe space, it means it's quite literally, if you ever saw, and I'm gonna actually play this game on stream, but there's a scene in Assassin's Creed 2 where Ezio is fighting. It's Mario. Oh god, that scene always pisses me off. But it's a scene in Assassin's Creed 2 where Ezio is actually practicing against his fighting techniques against Mario, and it's like you can't lose the fight, but it's really one of those things where it's just like, hey, I'm gonna fucking train you hard, and I'm gonna fight you. I want you to fight me hard, and pause. But it's one of those things where it's just like, and quite literally, it's almost a mirror to that because uncle's nephew. But it's like, I get it. People who are coming into their own political identities and actually having experienced the battles of life may actually have, concerns about the system and how fucked up it is. As a fucking millennial, the system is so fucked up. Oh my fucking goodness. The system is fucked up. And it is constantly getting worse before it's getting better. And you can tell these are genuine critiques of capitalism. Alright, what do I need to build this? I'm trying to do like 5 things at once. I need to get some more demon powder so I can go kill that demon bat and shit. Oh, I need 8. 8. And... fuck. Okay. So, 8 and more wood. 130 wood and 8 more irons. But let's continue.
There's a lot of things in there. Let me try to take them one by one. So first of all, what do you do with profit? And is it by definition exploitation? Well, a couple of points within that. First of all, I didn't always run a company. Obviously, I worked for other people for a lot of my life. And when I did, I hope I didn't work as least as possible and try to take out as much as possible. Look, of course, everybody wants to get paid as much as possible. That's like that we can all agree on.
Well, that's the fundamental interest that you have, obviously.
Right.
Is to have as much free time as you can to, better yourself or do things. That's true liberty, would you not say?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay, so this is a weird answer, and I understand why he answered that way. Just a flat out no versus, yeah, everybody wants to get paid. We all fucking can agree on that. Now, when you're doing something like talking on YouTube for a great captivated audience, by the way, you can actually subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Twitch or on the Crimson 60620 PS4 Gaming on Facebook. When you're doing something you love, where you actually are, fully enjoying the vocation that you're doing, so it doesn't seem like you're actually working. No, of course, you're going to be doing something you love and you get paid for it. Fucking cool beans. Like, if I actually got paid for doing my art, yeah, of course I wouldn't feel it as a job. I would love to have my art as my job. But shit don't work like that. And so I have to do wage labor for a job, and it's fucking depressing. I'm just gonna say it now, fucking depressing. But let's continue.
Because I liked my work, and I believed that the way to rise up was to work harder within that structure, and I was right. And so, if it was truly exploitive, wouldn't matter how hard you worked, you wouldn't rise up and you wouldn't get promotions or raises or any of those things. And then you would just have true exploitation, in which case I would agree with you. So let's say we're in a factory in China, we're making iPhones and you're not gonna rise up, okay? There's no rising up. So if I work 11 hours or 12 hours, well, of course I'd rather work 11 hours. Who wants to work 12 hours if there's no opportunity at the end of it, right? But in my case, for example, when I worked at a television station in Miami, the system did work. I came in as the lowest salesperson on staff, kind of like you did here, right?
Yeah.
And kind of like you did here, I rose up.
All right, that's kind of shitty, man. Like, yeah, you can come work in my company, but check it out. Yeah, you're not getting no special treatment. But you could tell that wasn't really the conversation. It was like, okay, you can work here, but you got to earn your keep. You don't just get to say, because I'm your nephew, I get extra shit. No, like, look at quite literally everybody who's been on the Young Turks that has been like a crucial part over the years. They've actually kind of, like John Irola, motherfucker, like has his head and has his own multiple shows or things like that. It's never. It's about. It's about how hard you work, quite literally. And I laugh at Hasan Piker because the shit is just hilarious, where he you would think that he's nervous as shit because he has a gun to his head. Like, oh, I can't be too hard on the boss. Like, no, quite literally, he has his own fucking YouTube channel. And even though he did get in some touchy situations about some of the shit that he said, it was never the situations where I got a pass because, Cenk's my uncle. Nah, like, he quite literally has worked hard to get where he is. And I respect that. I could not stream 8 hours on YouTube, Twitch, or whatever because, well, one, it's no way that I like fucking... I like video games, but not that much. Two, like, well, I guess if my job was the news, I would keep up with it. So, but, three, like... Damn, I guess because I do sit at the desk for 9.5 hours all day, I can do that. But still, I would want to get up and move around, like, for real. Like, sometimes it's hard for me to actually keep streaming for, like, more than 2 hours doing this. I have to really be engaged in the game or the fucking video and actually enjoy it. But, yeah, let's continue. I'm sorry. I rambled there for a second.
And I wound up going on air. I wound up then becoming a senior producer, then a supervising producer, head writer, and I moved on up. And so that hard work was rewarded. If it wasn't rewarded, then you would be totally right. But in this, it's not like capitalists are stupid, right? They understand that, hey, if all you do is exploit. And I'm not saying there's no exploitation. Of course there's exploitation, right? But if all you do is, and it depends. It depends on the company. It depends on a lot of different things. But if that's all you do, then your workers will not be very productive. Like, they'll only do the minimum possible. So, so are you in China? Are you in a factory? Are you in a place where there's actually ideas? Is there real mobility, et cetera? So that's why I say,
yeah, come on.
Compare Comcast Business to your current provider.
I'm not getting sponsored by Comcast right now. So we're going to let this actually play out. So, all right, come on. Dude, move out the way. Move out the... Okay. Pull the value back up. All right.
That formula as just the fact.
I didn't want to get into like the fundamentals, and I still want to avoid them as best as possible because they're incredibly boring. But the
fundamentals about shit is not boring. Come on, man. You better than this. You fucking better than this. Fundamentals are not boring. Go for it. But let's go.
Descriptions that I laid out are objective analysis of how remuneration occurs under capitalism. And what I mean by that is it sounds hyperbolic or it sounds explicit when I say exploitation because there is a colloquial understanding of what exploitation is. But what I'm referencing in this instance is, look, if my output to the company is, let's say, 30 units, you're going to pay me back 24 units because that's how it goes. Like that's
okay, so let's tackle that. So that's the next.
All right, so that is actually... That's actually something. That's something that happens. Now, he's being less... Depending on how much of an effect you want to actually have, it can actually be a little bit different. And I explain why. Okay, so let's look at the several different options. If you live in a totalitarian slave, if you work in a totalitarian slave, kind of environment, then you ain't getting shit back. You only getting the cost to feed you and make sure you don't die. And the farthest extreme, you actually, if you look at the farther extremes where, say, it's a worker-owned co-op, then you're actually not getting 100% of what you bring in as well. Because what you're getting, there are operating costs. And there is investment that's put back into the fucking business. So, yeah, that's a thing that happens. So, that's also something else that, but in the system that we have now, it's usually a 3-to-1. And that's being generous. It's if you bring in, if it costs a company 100 units to have you, they're only going to pay you 33. But let's continue.
So,
part, right?
and I'm not saying that like upward social mobility is impossible, but and it certainly isn't. Obviously, there are still people who can rise up and move from like middle class to upper middle class or whatnot. But ultimately, for the large majority of people that exist on this planet, both domestically and also at the international scale, that kind of class change is not necessarily a reality. And it's not just about hard work, and it's more so about a lack of equality of opportunity even, and that is all a consequence of a system that has designed itself to concentrate wealth and power at the top, so that every institution that comes after that is working at the behest of those capital owners.
So a couple things about that. First of all, that's why my political philosophy emphasizes opportunity at every turn. So when we did the progressive economic pledge on the Young Turks, and we asked politicians to sign it, College for All is on there. And so that was the one that was actually, in a sense, the most controversial, because it was supposed to be kind of a bare minimum litmus test of whether you're a progressive. People were like, well, is that really part of the bare minimum, College for All? And my answer is yes, because it provides opportunity for people who might not have it, and that gets the class mobility. Now, that's informed by our family's history. So my dad, your grandfather, was literally a dirt poor farmer and would have stayed on that farm for the rest of his life if he didn't have a chance at a free college education, which he got not in America, but in Turkey, which actually has a slightly more socialist system. And so it's just, that's why I say it's a matter where you draw the lines. So we must have class mobility. That doesn't mean that we do currently in America. Class mobility has been basically shrunken down at every turn, and it is by the controlling class, the donor class in America, and their greed knows no bounds, and so they burn the bridge after they cross it. So, but you can obviously have a system, as Turkey does, as most of Europe does, and as America had for a long time, where you do have far more class mobility, and the levers of power that the government uses creates that mobility. And so,
all right, so this is actually key. Like, one of the reasons why, class mobility in a purely communistic system doesn't exist, because there is just really one class, and they're going to throw, okay, cool. It's quite literally just one class. And the human experience leads me to believe that would just never happen. Just one class of people, because from the human experience, people actually in a lot of cases need to feel that they're better than somebody else in order to fucking feel some self-worth. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not even saying that it should be the key thing, but this is something the fucking humans do, because fucking humans. But let's continue.
So the government is supposed to be our representatives. Right now, it's so perverted in America that they make it seem like the government is supposed to be representing big business. No, it's supposed to represent us, oftentimes against big business.
Can you point to a period in time ever throughout the history of capitalist nations where the government has actually represented the interests of the people at every step of the way, and has done it without any sort of like outsized pressure from militant labor movements, for example?
All right, so this is the point where I was like, hey, I have to respond to this, because this is what, like, best way to say it. And I may lose some of my, liberal cred with this, but it's never going to be a utopia of what you think it should be. It's never going to be that way. It's never going to be that, once we get rid of the capitalists, there'll be nobody ever who's going to want to oppress other people. It's not. And there's always going to be a struggle. People do shit because they're forced to. the whole reason why you see people on the left actually wanting this because they feel there's no other way, and so they need to. God damn, like that's the problem with capitalism. That's another problem with conservatives. Like, if we just get things back to the way they used to be, everything will be okay. No, it's a fucking struggle. And maybe because I'm somebody who loves to fucking argue, and we're going to let this shit tick up. But I see this shit like, it's always going to be a struggle. It's always going to be where people need to fight for something. Because the minute you let your guard down, that's where... We let our guard down with neo-Nazis, and we let our guard down something with, casual racism. And look where that shit has turned out now. You can't let your fucking guard down. I'm sorry, guys. It just doesn't work that way. You always have to be vigilant. You always have to fight for what you need and what you want. And God damn it. It's going to be okay if you're struggling, because the struggle is real. But let's continue.
Right. And trade unionists and communists and socialists agitating and engaging in militant direct action.
So I want to get back to profit a little later, because I think you brought that point up, and it's really important to clarify why there's profit, et cetera, right? And why it's necessary. But in terms of the government and your question there, first of all, there's never a perfect system, but has there been a better balancing act in the past? Absolutely.
No,
right?
That's not what I asked. My question specifically was, you say that the fundamental role of the government is to reform capitalism, is to make sure that there are checks and balances instituted to dial back capitalism when the greedy corporatists, in your words, and their boundless greed gets out of control, and we start exploiting too much. Like, a little bit of exploitation is understandable, but too much exploitation, well, then you run into some problems. And my point is, that has never occurred. Like, that government that you speak of has never occurred without labor militancy, collective bargaining agreements, and political.
All right, so, damn it, where am I at? Damn it, I gotta go to my body this way. So, yeah, no, it hasn't occurred without people being forced to be that way. Oh, fucking well. Time to grow up, put your big boy pants on, and keep fighting. But let's continue.
Action taken directly by the people that were more class conscious back when there was trade unions and like the Socialist Party and whatnot in American history, that have been able to push the government to actually do this.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's still, again, been scaled back tremendously. And even at that time, even the New Deal era, like, there were still, it still obviously did not perfect the system, because it's still susceptible to corruption. It's malleable.
That's right. So a lot of that is totally correct. And but in a democracy, a government is a bit of a balancing act. It's always a balancing act. So that's why I brought that up. So what do I mean by that in this context? So FDR had tremendous pressure from labor unions, and people kind of have whitewashed that history.
Of course.
And there was a real significant threat of communism, although you might not perceive it as a threat, but in America at that time, and people forget that. So
fascism.
Right, and fascism, no question. And so what
all right, so it is, FDR wasn't a president who decided out of the kindness of his heart to give us all the social programs that we had. No, his back was against the wall. Unemployment was as high as it was. People were pissed the fuck off. That's why when we actually go to Mark Blyth's video about everybody needing a job after World War II, because they had saw the fact, if you don't fucking give everybody a job, then you may actually run into some shit. And they ran into some shit, but let's continue.
FDR did was a very smart and strong and aggressive balancing of those competing interests in the country, and came out more on the left side because the left side was stronger. And so that was, but that is kind of how government is supposed to work. It's not just that the elected official does it out of the goodness of his heart. He responds to pressure from the public. In a system that's broken like we have today, hey,
Maybe for your mother's birthday, you could make her a card or something.
Oh,
right,
yeah,
we
maybe
let
I
this shit
could.
play.
Maybe I could bake a cake, too. Or maybe I could find my own car insurance company and dump yours.
Yep.
Yup. Bye, Walter.
Hey, our politicians do not respond to pressure from the public. So, for example, I could use 1,000 examples, but the one I use most often is federal background checks on guns. 97% approval, yet we don't have it in force right now, and that's because we don't have a democracy. Mitch McConnell doesn't care what his voters think at all, not 1%, because he gets elected by the donors, not the voters. He just accumulates that money, spends it on campaign ads to lie to his voters and pretend that he's actually a leftist. That's literally what he does to win elections. And then not on social issues, but on economic issues. But back in the day, there was pressure, and the pressure did help to get us to a better place. And for LBJ, now this is not an economic issue as much, but the Civil Rights Act, people, you think that just happened on its own? No, not only enormous pressure from Martin Luther King and the nonviolence movement, but honestly, pressure from Malcolm X and pressure from riots in the cities. And we know for a fact now, historically, that LBJ was really, really worried about riots taking over the country. And so that's an uncomfortable fact, but that's a fact regardless. Now, they also have pressure from moneyed interests. So big business will put on pressure, and you name it, every part of society puts on pressure. That's actually a fairly good functioning democracy, as opposed to where we have now, where there's only one pressure point.
Okay, but you keep missing my point, and that is that since our founding in the United States, throughout time, these people that we have elected into positions of power have always been interested in preserving capital interest and capital accumulation at the top as best as possible. And only through labor militancy or direct action or like the threat of riots in the streets have we been able to institute like modest reforms on this system itself. And I say that is a consequence of the fundamentals that I brought forward, that class antagonism, and the fact that this system is entirely designed to collectivize capital at the top, concentrate capital at the top, so that, you know, only through the threat of violence can we get some modest reforms, whether it be like equality.
No, I don't agree.
Or even Social Security.
Yeah.
And even then, it's still under threat constantly. It's still.
All right. So, yeah. So, and I'm again, it's not that I'm trying to actually harp on it, but King said it best. You're always fighting for it, man. And that's the thing. You should always fight for it. If it's worth having, it's worth fighting for it. Yeah, no. No! Fuck! All right, let's continue.
Constantly scrutinized. Think about how we had to grovel and beg and go to town halls and yell at Republicans at town halls because Donald Trump was like, no, I'm taking it away. I'm taking Obamacare. We're going to repeal it without a replacement. And like, think about how much activism had to be done just to preserve that system that many people still understand is functionally broken or fundamentally still preserving the interests of private insurance industries, which you and I fight against and try to reform and socialize as best as possible. Think about the amount of work that is a necessity. That's not how democracy should be run. My point is, if we were to actually run...
But that's how democracies are run. That's how democracies are actually fought, day in, day out. There is always a fucking struggle. And unless we can magically change how not only humans, but fucking mammals work. And this is not the whole Jordan Peterson's people are lobsters. No, people are desire boxes. Like, they have desires and wants and needs and shit of that nature. They want shit. They always will. And that leads them to do some pretty great things and pretty shitty things. And you gotta understand, dog, there are people that just want power just to have power. There are people who want power so they won't be oppressed, and they in turn oppress other people. There are people that actually want power to help other people. And the same can be in exchange for wealth. The same can be in exchange for attention. The same can be in exchange for status. Well, I guess power is status, but you know what I mean. So that's one of the things that is just, when we talk about people who are starry-eyed or like, you're always gonna, I would rather have a government that is fearful of the people than one that is dismissive of the people. I will actually say that. I will admit to that. I would rather have it where capital is fearful of the people. It's fearful that the people that are part of what they're trying to do also have power in the decisions that's being made. Because when you do that, when you have that, you're forced to work together. I don't want a situation where you actually get uneven power dynamic. I wouldn't want that in my business relationships. Hell, I wouldn't want that in my personal relationships. An unequal power dynamic. We are fucking partners, all of us, in this whole fucking game called life. And the fact that you want to have completely unequal dynamic, that leads to tyranny. And I'm sorry, I've been on the receiving parts or seen the history of being part of the tyranny of the minority. The minority being part of the tyranny of the majority. That shit ain't cool. But let's continue.
This democracy, it would have to be in a way where the results allow every American citizen to have more political autonomy and more political agency. We're going to talk about that more, but first we have to go to a break. All right, we're back. Sorry about that, everybody. We had to work through a minor little kink there. We have hopefully synchronized the audio and we're back. And you can actually...
All right, so I think I lost my thrall. Fuck, I love that thrall. He was a beast. Let's see. Let's put everything back on. And I guess they had a little bit of a technical issue. All right, cool. Where's my thrall? Where's my thrall? Is my thrall dead? Is my thrall dead? I think my thrall is dead. Maybe he popped up back at the base. Maybe. Well, I got the shit out of here that I needed. But let's go. And we're about 30 minutes through? Okay, cool.
Actually find the full programming for members. It's not going to be desynced on the VOD later on, so don't worry about that. If you were like, damn, I really wanted to see all of the points that Hasan made that were brilliant, you'll be able to see that completely synchronized in the VOD.
Yeah, and by the way, so you can get it by becoming a member, but make sure you do it, if you're gonna become a member, bless your heart, do it through tyt.com/agitprop so that we know you did it through this show, that's what got you excited and interested.
Yeah,
right.
So they know that I am worthwhile to the company, and the show is worthwhile and they wanna keep it. Get it? Again, okay. So let's get...
Like, these, like, sly little ass attacks, like, it's funny and it's just, like, hilarious that he's just putting up with the shit like, oh yeah, Hasan. This is the phrase "have added house" comes from. Like, quite literally, you a fucking troublemaker, dude. And I fucking love it. This is how you support, like, the next generation of progressives. But let's continue.
Get back to it. I asked you
capitalist pig.
Yeah. So I asked you a very simple question where I said, why do you think that we've ever had a democracy, or why do you think that this is the best form of democracy when people have to literally either beg in the streets to preserve programs, like social programs that they know aren't even getting the job done completely, or even have to fight in the streets to get civil liberty, for example?
Right.
So I'm gonna give you the answer because it hasn't been it's the best, but it's not perfect. And this is not some big jingoistic, all America's the best. No, the system is in place to. It's the whole phrase: democracy is the best form of government, but it's also the worst form of government. That shit rings so fucking true. I lost my throw. Damn it. Curl the killing blow. You will be missed. I won't miss that motherfucker. But first, let's see if this thrall is done. I gave him some good ass arm, motherfucker. But let's continue.
So look, again, we always have to distinguish between today and portions of America and different countries when it worked better, not perfect, but better, right? So today, there's only a couple of honest representatives and democracy left. But let's take that as an example. So that's an interesting, different. It's a little bubble within the mass corruption that exists today. So, for example, the Just Democrats, none of them take corporate PAC money, and so they're uncorrupted. So, but does that mean that they will just do exactly what their voters want? I hope so, and I think that they've done a million times better job, and it's kind of enlightening. Put a spotlight on, ironically, the rest of the corruption. Like, whoa, if we had honest representatives, it turns out they fight for us instead of big business, etc. But even they have different pressures. So they have the pressure of their colleagues. They have the pressure of maybe small businesses in their neighborhood. They have a thousand different points, but that's how it should be in a democracy. So it's never going to be clean like, okay, the only people that the representatives are going to care about are the middle class or poor people. No, they're going to care about all the different classes and all the different interests, and that there's nothing wrong with that. And in terms of the friction, I don't think that there necessarily has to be this friction between the classes. I know that historically, certainly there has been, and I get why it naturally exists, because some portion of the rich will be greedy, and so they'll want more and more and more. And since they already have a lot of wealth and power, they will then use that wealth and power to accumulate more. But even today, even in this broken system, when you ask millionaires, should taxes be raised? 60% of them, the majority of the upper class, says yes, my taxes should be raised. So that's an example of there doesn't always have to be class warfare or friction. And the classes are not uniform. They're not just one blob. It's not like, oh, eat the rich. No, it depends which rich, and don't eat anybody. Okay.
Okay. So I guess when I say the Hamptons are not a defendable position, they're not. But at least if you live there, if you walking in there to fucking eat the rich, there may be some people that give you directions and give you some substance on your way to the real meal. Like, you know, I give them that. Like, it's just hilarious where it's just like, it's not going to be 100% everything all the time the way you think it is. And I get it. It's frustrating to have to actually, I guess, it'd be frustrating to actually have to let me get this fucking human flesh off my wheel. And that shit. Eat some more bugs. But yeah, like it's always a struggle, it's always a battle. But let's continue.
But you see what I'm saying?
Okay, here's the issue here. What you simply are just failing to recognize.
Compare Comcast Business to your current provider.
Comcast. Oh, I need you. I need an archer.
it's not in the extremities that you talk of. It's in every single aspect of our lives. And maybe you might have forgotten that as someone who is now a boss and a capital owner who works in a company. But at some point, as you noted, you used to be a worker, and you were a hard worker, and that's great. And I admire that. I'm a hard worker too. We have less alienation. We obviously benefit from a tremendous amount of privilege. As you said, your father, my grandfather, he built out this affluent. I mean, he was affluent. He gave you affluent beginnings so that you could go to college and go to the best institutions and have financial security and freedom to be able to pursue your dream, even if it meant literally living in like a motel in Miami for an extended period of time. But you still had some form of security. For a lot of people, they do not have that at all. There is no chance of upwards socioeconomic mobility at all. And for the overwhelming majority, again, I have to repeat this over and over again, for the overwhelming majority of people, the reality is they're not actually able to pursue their dreams, or they're not actually able to take on a job that's different than one that is unfulfilling. And you know this, and I know this, and that's precisely what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the common American and worldwide story for everyday workers and the struggles that they go through. When I say class antagonism and you bring it back to a personal anecdote, it's a little difficult to have this conversation. It's great that you want to work hard, and I work very hard as well. Totally great, totally valid. But the reality is a lot of people work really hard. Most of the people work really hard, and it's not just about upwards class mobility. It's about the lack of political agency that they have, the lack of political autonomy that they have, the lack of wealth that they have to pursue whatever they want to pursue. And that's
all right. So let me. That's BS. If that really want to pay more in taxes, then why not donate to? Okay, so here's the thing. I will give anybody who says that one person with the mentality of I'm going to change the system can't change the system. We actually would work better if we all work together, on both ends. And that's the key thing about it. There was a millionaire in an HBC that paid the college debt of all the students. He was a billionaire. But that's one. When you actually build systemic corruption, systemic issues in the fucking software, like we had with Mark Blyth is actually explaining, then you have a fucking issue. You need to actually look at the systemic issues that's happening. Now, here's the thing. Here's the great thing. We have the tools to actually, one, get money out of politics with a constitutional amendment, and two, we can actually work to actually make sure that, you know, we stop and wake up and realize what we're doing to each other and what is costing us, the people that's demanding all of it. And goddamn, yes, we get it. There are some people that have, you know, advantages because they won a genetic lottery or the national lottery just by simply being born here. And yes, is that a bad product of the system? Of course it is. And that just makes it more tangible that we should actually try to rewrite the system, not completely throw the baby out with the bathwater because we don't like it. Because every, and this is the debate on both sides, like everything that I've seen with the move to anarcho socialism, it's always, well, we have some structural issues, but we're gonna ignore it because reasons we're gonna ignore it. And it's just like, come on, dude, like, again, it's frustration with the system, and I know it's easy to throw out all of the system, to try to rewrite it, it's a lot easier. But sometimes you have to work inside the system. And no, I'm not saying accept it. Fuck no. I'm saying Incredible Hulk that shit once you inside. Break it and blow it apart. Oh, look, it's Jill. Oh, look at Jill. But let's continue.
Entire system, and the politicians that you mentioned, with the exception of like a couple like honest ones, every single politician is designed to uphold the system no matter what the cost is, even if they are interested in like slightly reforming it. There is no one out there, especially in America, who's like, we need to upend this system. We need to drastically change the status quo. We need to ensure that people can live a dignified existence beyond. Like, imagine the world beyond capitalism. I forget who said this, but it's easier, I think, for you to imagine the end of the world than to imagine the end of capitalism. And that's a big problem for a lot of social democrats who also don't engage with theory.
Yeah. So look, I want to get to what you think your ideal is, because
all right, so here's the thing. Living with dignity and actually living high on a hog are two different things. And let me explain what I mean by that. There are people that are suited for service jobs. We shouldn't fucking and I'm gonna actually put the game put the game down for a second. There are people who actually enjoy doing service jobs. There are some people who actually enjoy taking care of kids, like, and being men or women. There are some people who enjoy doing what others will call remedial tasks. Now, I know a lot of things that actually has grown around corporatism. That's this being a technocrat, where they think, oh no, you have to have a big tech job and you have to be super great to have a fulfilling job. No, that's not always the case. And we don't know what... I have discussions with people that they may not be geared towards the system that we have in place, or may have children that may not be geared towards the system that we have in place right now. And it's just like, it saddens me because we see a system where people who can't conform to the system we have in place, as those people are being defective in some way. 10 years ago, you wouldn't have never thought about somebody actually getting on the internet and making a news company, because you always had to do it through cable news channels or the local news, or actually playing video games online, streaming. Like, that wasn't a thing 10, 15 years ago. But you have people who make a big deal, like they fucking LeBron James, for moving from one platform or team to another, and like announcing it like it's okay, we just have to go to another link to watch you. But people making a big deal out of it now. Sports 40 fucking years ago, you can actually be a sports professional and also have a regular job. Like shit like this wasn't there so long ago. But the economy moves and the economy changes. But that still doesn't mean that we get rid of some of the bad jobs that are around. Like, you can only automate so much to our current technology. Not everything will be automated as best as some people think it would be. But let's continue.
I know what my ideal is. It's to fix the system, etc. And so let me address what you're saying. Then I want to go to profit as a bridge to what your ideal is. So look, when you talk, I'm going to go back to the anecdote, but only as I hope it's illustrative, and that's why I'm going to it, right? So my dad wound up becoming affluent. That's true, but if you start the story there, it's misleading. So he, as you know, was totally broke, poor, nothing, okay?
Okay, so one of the things that I fucking hate is that, as you know, when you're talking about an actual movie. Now, these are real people's laughs, so I'm not gonna be that asshole. But you ever watch a movie? It's like, as you know, as if you were explaining it for an audience. They are quite literally explaining it for an audience, so they get a pass with that. But as you know, motherfucker, no, tell me, just tell me. But you know, and if you haven't seen his video with his Dogon, his father, talking about what his history of life was being, that was actually fun. But I just want to address this in chat for Jill. I must keep racist white liberals like the Turks and Biden make me sick. For one, the Young Turks aren't racist. If you would say they were social justice warriors in the sense of the word, that they fight for social justice, then you would have an argument there. Some people say that they're too passionate about social justice issues. But yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you with Biden because he doesn't even realize that he's bigoted. I'm not gonna call him racist, but he's bigoted. There's a difference. He doesn't demand for the systematic oppression of one specific, unless something is like he's hiding that shit completely in his heart. He doesn't require suppression of a specific race. He just has several bigoted ideas. Cheers. But let's continue.
Started with absolutely none. He had family support, right? So his uncle let him stay for free in a small apartment in Istanbul, and the government gave him a free education. Otherwise, he couldn't have done it. But basically, had no money whatsoever. So in a capitalist system where the government struck the right balance, he was able to then become a mechanical engineer, start his own company, hire 100 people, be successful, etc. I'd say that's a pretty good shining example of class mobility and capitalism working right. And then, yes, by the time that I start Young Turks, he has become affluent and he helps me to do it. And I want everybody to understand, you're absolutely right when you talk about luck, when you talk about, it doesn't mean it's all luck, and I don't want people to get discouraged by that at all. But at the same time, for people who are naive and think, oh, bootstraps, etc., there are the extraordinary stories like my dad. But for me, no, it's not extraordinary. If my dad didn't have capital to invest in this and in like keeping me propped up, etc., I never would have made it. It's not even close, and it's not arguable. Even when I was in the crack hotel in Miami, and it was literally a converted crack hotel.
There were cockroaches everywhere. I'm not taking that away from you at all.
No, I know, but I'm saying, you're partly right about that. Even when I was in that, I knew that I had the safety net of, but if everything goes disastrously, I can still go to my dad's basement.
Okay.
Right? And it's like Henry David Thoreau. Yeah, you're in the wilderness, dude, except it turns out it's your dad's backyard and he runs a pencil factory. So I get all that, but at the same time, that brings me to profit, right?
All right, so let's just address this. He said, Thoreau was like, oh, I'm gonna live poor in the woods. I'm gonna live poor in the woods. Motherfucker, you are not really living poor in the woods. You're choosing that shit. And you only did it for a few years, and then it wasn't like it was at a time where you had nothing to do but to read and actually think of different economic theories. No, motherfucker. It was at 19th century. Quite literally, you didn't give up much. But let's continue. And let's just talk about this. Okay, so how do I put this? Yes, class mobility in a lot of people's purview is just out the window. And that's because we have a shitty ass system. And we should do everything in our power to actually get that system. And I always ask people who said these people should just work hard and actually pull them up by bootstraps. Just throw bootstraps at them. Ironically enough, that's it. The pull yourself up by your bootstraps was quite literally supposed to be a ridiculous thing because you're supposed to pull yourself by the bootstraps and start literally you get stuck more in. But that's a different story. But you make it not just because you work hard. I'm reminded of that line from fucking Naruto, Chunin exam. Neji, you're not just people who are born to be Hokage are born to be Hokage. And it was partially true from Naruto's whole thing. He kind of had the mixing to be a Hokage, but he still worked fucking hard. Like it. Okay, anime nerd alert. Time out. So, as an anime nerd, I will say this: I get pissy at the people who said that, oh, Naruto was just handed this, he was just handed that. No, the motherfucker suffered a lot. His fucking parents died on his birthday. He was ridiculed by the whole fucking village. Yes, he had chakra monster in him, but the motherfucker still worked hard. Between each mission, you would see his ass training. That was a problem that he had with his son Boruto, where it's just like, hey, his clothes are always clean. When you actually saw kid Naruto, he was always motherfucking training. And to an extent, you saw that shit with Sasuke, where he was looking at his brothers like, damn, this is what throwing kunais and actually hitting the shit. Trust me, I'm nerding out for a minute. But it's like, they would actually always train. The whole thing about Goku in Dragon Ball, everything in Dragon Ball, you would always see him train. He was dead in training. He spent so much time training that his wife kind of got used to it. Vegeta, always training. Now, they are the strongest because plot, but they also put in work. Like, shit. You're not just prophesied to be this way. You're not just in a position to be this way. Yes, it takes you hard work, but a lot of times it takes fucking luck. That's just it. And for people to actually say, I'm a self-made man, oh, great. What did you do to keep yourself being hit by that truck that you didn't see, that just so happens to miss your ass when you didn't do shit? It's both a combination of hard work and luck. Speaking of hard work, let's get back to work on a video.
So when people invest into a company, if you look at it just as the small window of, let's say your output, as you said in your example, is 30 whatever units, right? And we pay you 24, you think, well, you took the 6 from me. No, the 6 needs to go into air conditioning, which apparently there's not enough of in this studio.
Oh, no.
Rent,
Okay, that's a fundamental misunderstanding.
No, I'm with you. Even if the 24 is built into all the costs, okay, it still needs to go to profit because otherwise no one would ever invest, right? So you need to have a return for the investment. Otherwise you can literally never start any business. See, that's why I do believe in capitalism, because that return on investment drives the profit. The profit motive drives the return on investment, which drives capital creation and businesses that employ all of us.
We will get back to the fundamental disagreement that we have in regards to finance capitalism and how that has literally been the bane and the real reason why we have seen such a drastic erosion in a matter of 30 to 40 to 50 years. No. We can talk about that in a brief moment, but before we get there, something that I have to point out again is that you are using anecdotes when you talk about Dogen, when you talk about my grandfather or your father, and there's a problem with that, especially when this is still the same system that in the Gilded Age had drastic wealth inequality, right? Drastic wealth and income inequality, and we saw the consequences of that. And we have now, this is the same system again, that even through a series of reforms have gotten back to that same level of inequality. We have 2,048 billionaires on this planet right now. We know exactly who they are. We know how much money they have. They have enough money. Just their sheer wealth accumulation this past year alone could solve extreme poverty at the global level 7 times over. That distribution is built in to every facet of our lives. It gets legitimized through our institutions, and that is the main problem, and that's precisely why we have virtually no class consciousness in this country. And I'm saying that it's great. We have the same goals in the short term. I want to ensure that the material conditions of all Americans are improved drastically. It is an absolute necessity.
All right, so And again, I'm trying not to do the whole, you know, but you need to fight. I guess. Not trying to do, but you need to fight to keep it that way. But this video is kind of really turning into, if you want something important, you need to fight for it. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to actually do that. I'm not trying to turn this into that video. But this is quite literally turning into, if you want something bad enough, you need to fight for it. Okay, so... Okay... Maybe I should actually do that? Fuck. I'm gonna actually go get the your mirror set, but first, where's my outfit so I can actually get better coverings?
But in the long run, this system needs to be completely revamped.
So
you can
I don't
call
agree
it
with that.
socialism. You can call it whatever you want, and that's why I
So
say
let's
this.
get into those details, Haas, because look, in terms of the anecdotes, etc., I don't want people to get it mistaken. We don't live in the society that my dad grew up in and had those opportunities.
But
in.
even in the society that Dogan grew up in, there were still plenty of people who were insanely poor and.
Caesar, politician, ruler,
Skip it.
man.
Stayed that way. The overwhelming majority of poor.
Okay, I'm
were
going to say
still
something
poor.
controversial, and people are going to hate me in a second. Okay, but first, look, in today's society, like Elizabeth Warren talks about this. She went to college for $50. Okay, no, ain't nobody going to college for $50. Well, then you just destroyed class mobility. The GI Bill of Rights and GI's education, basically free college education. That's why in the 1940s, 1950s, America was a much freer, much more democratic, and more capitalist society, not less capitalist society. Now there's a corporatist society that says, no, now you got to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for any chance of mobility, which then makes you an indentured servant of corporations in order to pay that money back. And I've talked to politicians on this show and even billionaires on this show who say, yeah, back then my dad was a jazz musician. Ray Dalio, the largest hedge fund owner in the world, said my dad was a jazz musician and we bought a house for $17,000 in Long Island. Now that is gone, obliterated. There's almost no class mobility left. So we must fundamentally change what we have today.
All right, so one of the reasons why we had that issue is the rise of the technocrats, where it was you have to go to college. Okay, since we have to go to college, let's make going to college. Let's squeeze as much profit as we can out of people going to college, and we get the rise of the technocrats. That's quite literally what happened, and it is not motherfucking fun at all. How do you use this? Okay. So what bow can I put this shit in? Okay, cool. Cool, star metal bow. Oh, cool. Wait for it. Oh. Fuck! Okay, I'm sorry.
But when you go back to my dad's era, a lot of people from his era and his town that were just as poor as him didn't make it out. And so I think it's totally okay for them not to make it out. They didn't figure out that you should go to college. Some of them worked hard, some of them didn't, some of them got lucky, some of them didn't get lucky, etc. But what do you want? Do you want a system that says, well, you didn't work hard as hard as my dad, but I'm gonna give it to you anyway? So like that, I don't mean to be, like, I don't want to set up a false thing for you. I want you to explain.
I'll explain it, because this is the constant misinformation that a lot of people spread about, like communism or socialism. Well, not communism, but at least like socialism or leftist ideals, which is like, oh, you want equality of outcome. No. that's not true at all. No one is saying like we need to, you know, shave the bone density of like basketball players that have like a genetic advantage or something over others, or like make sure that, you know, they're operating at a handicap so that like everyone's playing and we have full equity or full equality. That's not a real thing, obviously. And also, like full equality, even equality as a concept is like always confusing, because if you consider like full equality, okay, well, what about equal representation? Like, do we just want, like a liberal will say, I want more female prison guards. And a leftist in this instance would say, well, why do we have prisons to begin with? Maybe let's analyze that. Maybe let's talk about prison abolition or reforming the criminal justice system from within.
See, that's a good.
So, yeah, like, there are some crimes that people commit that aren't really motherfucking crimes. They're fucking property crimes. And yeah, we need to actually address that, or things that may go against what people consider property crimes. Now, of course, fuck no. I don't want anybody to misconstrue the saying that we need to just get rid of jails. No, there are violent, very horrible, very destructive people in this motherfucking world. And if you ever meet somebody who says we should just get rid of jails altogether, you're run away from the motherfuckers, because they may be looking to commit some crimes. Just like, no bullshit, like, yeah, run the other motherfucking way, because those motherfuckers are scary. But let's let them finish.
Good example. Can I just jump in for one second? Because where I would come out on that is, I would say it's mental to think that you don't need prisons. Of course you need prisons. But with a giant but, you should teach all the guards the Stanford prison experiment, so that they know that they will naturally be cruel to the detainees, whether it's justified or not, and have a tradition and a culture and training for the guards that they understand it. You shouldn't put people in prison based on cash bail, because that is based on class for no reason at all. You shouldn't put people in jail for smoking marijuana, etc. So there's massive reforms to be done to get our criminal justice reform to the place that it needs to be. But if you say there shouldn't be prisons, and I'm not saying you are saying that, for anyone who is, well, then I don't agree.
All right, so that's actually interesting, because like, quite literally, you get people who says, no, we don't need prisons. What the fuck now? There are still violent people in this motherfucking world. There are still violent people in this motherfucking world. And quite literally, there are some things that, you know, people do shit to other people. Now, the cash bail system and the justice system definitely needs to be reformed. And this is key, because it's built a lot on prejudice. And this is almost over, guys. We got about another 10 minutes of the video. How long have I been streaming? Pull it up. Oh, shit. Yeah, hopefully we can actually finish this within the next 10 minutes. But let's continue.
Okay. Yes, there will be back and forth whenever we discuss these sorts of concepts. That's totally understandable. The point I was trying to make is that equality is not always exactly as intended. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because, like, there are differences between like what we can offer to every worker and how to do that. And the delivery mechanism for you is the state. And that's fine, and I understand that's a good concept. I somewhat agree with that. I'm not an anarchist. But my point is that there has never been a democratic process, and that in order to even achieve democracy, we need to have more political agency and more political autonomy. And the only way that we've like kind of arrived at that has been through like labor unions and the power of collective bargaining and all of that applied pressure that forced FDR and previous administrations to implement modest social reforms to correct the aberration, to correct all of the systemic inequalities. Well, not all of them, but some of them. But ultimately, we still operate under the assumption that this is totally fine and the best kind of organization that we can exist under, and that is why we still have, as you will also admit, politicians that are always going to represent the interests of corporations. It's not a new thing. It's not just because of Citizens United. The Citizens United decision is not the only reason why we have wealthy oligarchs paying politicians whatever they want to get whatever kind of legislation that they want. It predates 1978. It predates the New Deal. This has always been the case. And my point is that it's been the case because the system is designed to manufacture these results.
All right, so it has been the case. It has not always been the case. It ebbs and flows. I'm sorry, Hasan. It ebbs and flows. And this whole coming back to the same thing, yeah, of course, we need to fight. That's something that we need to do. It's not just something that you keep and you hold and you always have it and you're never challenged again. No. It's about a fight. Like, you have to fight to keep this shit going. I just don't know what else to say, man. Some shit requires fights. And it's okay. Like, it's okay to actually fight what you believe and keep up that fight. And fuck, I know it gets tiring. It does get fucking tiring. But that's okay. Our thing is to keep fucking fighting. But let's continue.
Yeah, no, I don't agree. So
explain to me this then. If it's not about if it's corporatism and not capitalism, then why did we have such a hard time coming to terms with the abolition of slavery? If it wasn't purely at the behest of capital that our political figures, why did they design this country, right? A country that you have called the best country on earth at many different points. Why did they design this country to have a non-direct, non-representative democracy that only worked for white male landowners and owners of slaves?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different answers to that. First off, there's always, I agree with you on that, there's always some competing interests, let's put it that way, between the capital owners and the non-capital owners. Slavery is a very stark example of that. And so but you should know that there was actually very large corporations around back then. The founding fathers actually despised those corporations. It was partly out of a revolution, not just against the British monarchy, but against those companies like the East Indian Company that they did that. The Boston Tea Party was not against the government, was not against the monarchy. It was against the British Tea Company.
So this is actually true. I think it was this East Indian Dutch Trading Company, something of that thing that where it was about how not only was it they wanted to fight the monarchy, and they also wanted to fight the companies. And then they turned right back around with their own power and actually fucking made sure that they had actually built a system in place. It's fucking human nature. And again, not in a system where it's all humans are just evil. No, it's just like when you have power, you want to hold on to it. And that means you're always fighting. Tiring, I know, but you're always fighting. But let's continue.
That they did that. So, and they warned us about the takeover of corporations. Now, nonetheless, they were very affected by the capital situation in terms of slavery, et cetera. And, but also you have to give it in its proper historical context. So, like, for example, people say, well, you know, Islam actually greatly improved the rights of women back then in that geographic area, and that is true. They had no rights, and Islam gave them some rights. I would counter that God should know that they should have full rights, right?
Yeah.
And so
this isn't a conversation about religion, but that's. Let's go.
Oh, he should have amended the Quran by now, or actually done it right. But when you talk about a democracy, we're not talking about a supernatural creature. We're talking about a normal evolution. And the reason why I respect the Founding Fathers so much is that not only did they significantly increase the amount of participation in our government by taking it from just the lords and the royalty, et cetera, to propertied white males, that now seems anachronistic because it's anachronistic because we don't live in that time. But
come on. It's almost finished, though. It's almost finished. Let's get that.
Back then, that was a massive, massive, world-changing earthquake. And the second earthquake is understated, and everybody gets it wrong. When they said you should amend this Constitution, what that did was it allowed for nonstop revolutions. Every amendment is a revolution, so that you don't have to go to violence, you don't have to pick up muskets, etc. And so they anticipated, and they were right, that we would expand the circle of liberty. And guess what? We did. We did. It did work. Because if capital was always the oppressor, well, then there would be no way out. Then we would have never ended slavery, and we would have never had the civil rights movement, we would have never had the suffragettes, we would have never had any of those things. And we did have all those things. Now, it is extraordinarily difficult, and we wish it wasn't. That's why we're trying to fix the system. And right now, it has become more difficult than it has ever been, in a sense, in American history.
But we're not in disagreement on this. My point is that it is ahistorical to look at this. I mean, you already admitted it. It's ahistorical to look at this and say like, oh, well, ultimately we will expand rights, and then that's how we're supposed to do it, and assume that like that's precisely how things would go. Obviously, every single instance of social progress and even economic progress, albeit that was less frequent, has been done through a lot of public pressure. And of course that it still happened. And I get that, and that's great, but it almost feels like you and I are in agreement that there is a next stage in this evolution, and my point has always been that that next stage in our evolution comes from increasing the democracy that we experience. And that actually brings us to, I guess, the second point that I wanted to get to in this conversation, which is if you believe that democracy works in the level of governance, why don't you believe that we can implement democracy in the workplace, especially considering that adults spend 80% of their entire lives inside of these corporations, and these corporations are absolutely authoritarian in its structure.
Yeah.
There is a
All right, so, damn it. Okay, yeah, we can do the rest of the 10 minutes. I'm gonna actually let the arguments being made a little bit better, because this is also another reason why I want to do this video. This is a reason why. Because you actually see this, and I will admit that this is something that affects me. I spend 10 hours a day at work because business needs. And this is not okay. And this is one of the key things. This is where I see a lot of people actually argue how much rights workers should actually have. So let's continue.
The top-down power structure, and that contributes significantly to alienation. That is, again, a consequence of the class antagonism that I mentioned before, and the fact that wealth is concentrated at the top, and they are allowed to do this. But the worst part about this is that we take it for granted. We assume that this is the norm when it should not be the norm, and that's my point. And that's one way to transition into a true democracy where we are where we are getting more democratic outcomes within the workplace, through commodity production, and then ultimately through the drastic wealth redistribution that occurs as a consequence of that will help us gain, like us American workers, gain more dignity and more power and become better equipped to argue for their own interests.
Okay, so there's a lot of layers to that, and we'll get through them one by one. First of all, it depends on the type of company that you have. First layer is the size of the company. So if you have a very large company that is incredibly profitable, well, then you have less, let's put it this way, and it's a funny way of putting it, but less excuse not to share it with your employees, with the community, et cetera. You're just doing that to maximize profit. And they colloquially call it greedy, but I'm gonna explain in a second that it's built into the coding, and so it's almost mandatory. If you're a smaller company, well, it's a matter of survival. So when we were talking the original example of the 24 and the 30 and all that, well, you're just trying to get to break even. And that's a completely different dynamic. Okay, but that's less important. The more important distinction is private companies versus public companies. So a private company run by a founder or a CEO, et cetera, can really do whatever it wants. And it could say to its investors, it could say to different things, hey, this is how much I'm gonna share with the employees, and it becomes more discretionary. Once you become a public company, you do not have a choice anymore. You must maximize profit at all costs. Otherwise, you will be removed from your position.
Yeah, your fiduciary responsibility, it's literally built in. It's almost like, once again, that like every facet of, even our legal institutions are protecting the interests of, as you say, the donor class, or as I would say, capital owners.
So I think
all right, so this is actually pretty interesting because this actually gets to how far in, I remember I did a video with Richard Wolff about this whole thing. It's about how, I just lost my train of thought. Hold on one second. You have public companies, you have semi-public private companies, and then you have co-ops. And so when you're a small private company, yeah, like if I ran a business where I was just me and like 1 or 2 employees that actually would do like the editing or do PA shit, it would be irresponsible for me to like, oh no, you get paid as much as I do, especially if I'm actually putting out the money to make sure that everybody is actually living, doing a job. And this is why the whole, you get more conservative when you get older, because you actually it's not even that you get more conservative. From what I see from my anecdotal experience, is like you get more shit that you have to be responsible for when you get older. That's when you have that issue if you're a small company. Now, if you're a large private company, you can't, like, God, did he talk about him yet? He may, but it's like when you're a large company, private company, you should be able to treat your employees well. You shouldn't have to exploit your employees. And even if you took the model of profit, still, if you're a large company, you can be profitable and be insanely rich. But let's continue.
There's a huge difference between donor class and capital owners, but in this case, even within capital owners, the public corporations must be reformed. They're what led to corporatism. So if you set up the rules as we have them currently today in America, and you say you have no other concerns, no other stakeholders. You don't have to worry about your community. You don't have to worry about your workers. Your only directive, and we built it into the law. We built it, because what is a company? A company is a legal fiction. It is something that we created as a state. In a democracy, at some point, we said there has to be this thing called a company so that it's limited liability and not everybody who works there is liable for what the company does. So that is necessary. But then when you turn them into public corporations and you write into the code, there's no other factors. You must make every single cent that you can. Well, then they're going to crush everything in their path. And that's what leads to capture of the government. That's what leads to paying your workers as little as possible. They get them to the breaking point. And so that is exactly what you're combating and what I agree with you on, Haas, okay?
Well, private corporations, again, though, still have that same inappropriate power dynamic. And it's not like wealthy people are offering more wages or offering like more benefits to their employees out of the kindness of their heart.
Yeah, so let's do those two.
It can happen.
That's right. That's right.
But
so
like,
you're
that's not the norm. So obviously someone has to apply pressure to ensure that even private corporations does that. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen, and it hasn't happened. And my point there is that it hasn't happened because, again, the wealthy have built this system in every institution.
Okay, so there's 4 layers to that. Let's try to break down this.
All right, he's gonna list the 4 layers, and again, it's just like, I'm hearing this whole thing of like, the system is fucked up. The system is fucked up. We need to rewrite the whole system. And again, I'm hearing that it's like societies are dynamic, not static. And you're never going to get to a place where it's just a utopia. You're not. You're always going to have to fight. And saying, I'm going to get rid of this whole system and everything will be okay. Shit like that just doesn't happen. Feudalism, anyone? Oh, we got rid of that. You know, and it's just one of those things where it's just like, I get the passion. Keep that passion for fighting instead of just saying, oh, finish, throw away. Like, that'd be like me, actually, like, I don't like this base that I built in Conan. All the work and sweat and tears that I've put into it when it was just a small base, I should just throw it away and start a new game. Now, I've been wanting to do that, but it would disincentivize me from actually continuing the hard work that I'm doing now. But let's continue.
As public corporations, we agree on public corporations. Yeah. They're fundamentally wrong in their infrastructure, in their setup, in their conception even, okay? Mm-hmm. So then there's private corporations, and you're right that there is a range there. So a person could be a good employer and share a lot with their employees. Actually, ironically, Howard Schultz, who's terrible on politics, is actually a pretty good boss and has shared a lot more with his employees than other corporations have chosen to do. And it's partly...
So here's, and the dude who runs Starbucks, who founded Starbucks, he is fucking awesome to his employees. Like, quite literally awesome to his employees. It's just like his politics are bullshit. Now, maybe it's some cognitive dissonance there where it's like, hey, maybe I should actually want to treat the rest of the country as I treat my employees. But it's a fake scarcity in that whole idea. And I think that what a lot of fucking rich people actually have. A fake sense of scarcity. But let's continue.
Because he's a founder, even if when they became a public corporation, he retained enough power to be able to be decent to not only his employees, but to the farmers that he works with in Latin America, et cetera. It's so ironic because he seems like such a jerk right now publicly. But anyway, in a private corporation, you do have a range. But once you have the range, you're right. There'll be plenty of people at the top who go, no, I'm not going to share with my employees at all. I'm going to maximize every penny because I want to, right?
None of the processes that you mention are actually democratic, and that's precisely what I'm saying.
That's right.
The workers are not making the workers are not making democratic decisions in who they choose as their managers, or the workers are not making democratic decisions.
I got you. I'm getting to that. So, so the first category, you can't have democracy in the workplace by definition. And the second category, you potentially could, but most don't.
Oh, come on. At least it's a one ad that I can skip. All right.
The third category is, I think, what you're advocating for, some sort of more, well, let me put it this way. It exists in the world. Like in Germany, there are boards where there's a management board and a supervisory board. The supervisory board is made up, depending on the size of the company, of 1/3 labor or even half labor. If the company is larger, it can be 50% of the board is controlled by labor. So that's a situation that says it's no longer optional. We're now saying some degree of democracy is mandatory at work.
And so, yeah, that's the thing. And that's what we should actually be striving for. And we know Germany isn't some socialist paradise, but that's how they have the shit. Now, what has happened in Germany, most, there have not been an increase in wages across the board, but also prices haven't went up. The Germans they have a different type of culture than America, that's true. But they are in a better position in a lot of countries. Now they've also exported a lot of the financial issues to other countries, but they couldn't have that. It's like, you're not doing it to our citizens, our employees. They did it to other employees. I will give people that. And then they are actually not. So the funny fucking thing is, you actually see where people are. Let's see, which one is this? I need that. Yeah, go ahead. You actually see where people are just, they have more power. And that's the thing. You want to give not workers absolute power, because no, absolute power corrupts absolutely. But you also don't want to give management absolute power. But let's continue. Let's go ahead.
And if you set it up right, and I think the Germans largely have, well, that could work really, really great. And that's how you change the rules to get to the outcomes that you want. I think the fourth layer is when you then have the employees completely run the company. And I think, we'll talk about it more, but I think I'm totally opposed to that.
I think you are totally opposed to that. Otherwise, we would be running a cooperative corporation right now. My point was my point was, and still is, that no matter how you cut it, like, we have completely accepted this reality that, of course, it's not going to be a democratic process in the corporations, inside of the workplace, and that is shocking to me. It's always been shocking to me, and it's still shocking to this day to me that no one's like, wait a minute, we want to have a democracy, like, we're advocating for a democracy and governance, but for some reason, we spend most of our lives in this place, and there is no democratic process where I don't get to figure out what I think is best for the company, or sit down with other people that even know better than me and, like, make the best possible choices, but have some sense of agency within my work that I'm creating. And that's obviously due to division of labor as well, but there are ways to mitigate that alienation, and we're not doing that. And one way of doing that is democratizing the workplace, which I think is a good first step towards higher levels of socialization, and then ultimately a drastic reorganization of our economy. We are going to go to a break.
Hold on, let me just say one thing before we go.
2 minutes?
Yes, before we go.
All right, so let me actually cut in there before he cuts in there. So here's the thing, and I will say this. I'm sure somebody who has thought that I work with idiots. These people don't know how to make a good decision. Oh, here he is. He's back. Yay. Yay, he popped back. Yay. I know a lot of people actually have this thing where they think they work with idiots. Yes, we all do have that fucking sense of we work with idiots. Now, I'm not saying that, and I was having a discussion with somebody from my job where, you see a lot of managers or leaders actually get promoted. This is from a lot of places that I work. It's not just the one place it's not just my current location, but a lot of leaders are promoted because they're good performers. Not that they have leadership skills, it's just that they have good performing skills. And that doesn't necessarily make them a good leader. There is not a lot of leadership training. I know I've never had leadership training, even though I've actually ran small box stores. So I can work in a co-op with people that I would think that I have respect for their intelligence. And yeah, maybe we need to revamp how we, put people in the formative years of their life. But I wouldn't trust a co-op to just anybody. I'm sorry. Now, I would trust a balance of power like we should have with government as far as a representative democracy. And we are a fucking republic because we are representative. Oh, fuck no. Please don't tell me a sandstorm is coming out. Phew. Great. But, this is some shit, and let's let them finish the video. Let's go.
Go to that. Look, guys, so I believe in some form of democracy in the workplace, and it's a balancing act. So in America, we have B Corps and benefit corporations, and that's a slightly different balancing act, and one that's really worthy to look at. And so, and I think that between that and the German example, there are some things that where we can get to a better balancing act, way better balancing act than we have here. But I think our fundamental disagreement, which we'll talk more about in the next hour, is I think there are many situations, including work, where a democracy doesn't necessarily make sense. So it's an interesting rhetorical point, and even one that is beyond rhetorical. It's an interesting point, period, that we should discuss, and that's why we're doing this. But you can certainly concede that there are situations like team sports, the military, where a democracy doesn't work. Hey guys, are we going to take the hill or are we not going to take the hill? Well, let's have a vote. Okay, well, if you have a vote, nobody's going to go take the hill, right? Let alone the fact that there'll be chaos. So it depends. Is a company more like the military or is a company more like the government?
Yes, commodity production is a little different. We will be talking about that in the next hour. If you want to see that, you have to unfortunately become a member. It is behind a paywall. It's for members only content. You can do that by going to tyt.com/agitprop. It's only $5 a month. And if you join through that process, then they'll know that this show should be kept alive.
Okay,
All right.
Can I say before we go, look, the reason we do it, guys, is one, we got to get to break even. Okay, we're not McDonald's or Johnson & Johnson and sitting in profits, et cetera. We actually have to keep the lights on. And if you could see the air conditioning in this room, you'd know, barely keeping it on. Okay.
Cenk is going to explain to me why democracy doesn't work in the second hour, so we're very excited about
but
that
in
process.
a sense, though, this, you guys deciding to join or not join, is a form of democracy. Hey, I like that show. I'm going to join based on that show.
Okay.
You should keep that show on the air.
All right, stop trying to
Democracy.
shill. All right, we'll be back. We'll be back in like 2 minutes. All right, bye.
All right, so this is actually fun, and we're gonna actually end this by me taking the tower and fucking destroying this fucking ass bat. So I got a fucking few surprises for his ass. But yeah, this is actually it's. So the reason why you guys saw the reasons why I wanted to actually address this, because I get the whole wanting to change the world. I'm fucking 37 and I still want to fucking change the world. I don't think that it's a bad thing to actually have ideas, to have principles, to actually want to motherfucking make a difference. If I thought that it was a bad thing, I wouldn't be doing this shit now. I feel that there are discussions that need to be had, systems that need to be revamped, but throwing the whole thing out just because I don't like the results of it, no. Let's force a fucking change. Let's make sure that we know, that people know that they're in power at our behest. Let's also not forget that it's not a fucking struggle, that you have to struggle with day in, day out to make sure that not only are your own individual's rights are protected, but everyone's rights are protected. That's why you see people that get my utmost respect, like Cornel West gets my utmost respect. Jesse Jackson, to an extent, well, used to, but he became part of the establishment and he stopped trying. Shit like that, where people actually keep fighting and keep pushing to want to make us better, instead of people resting on their laurels. Die, you bastard. Ooh. Now, let's see. Nope, not today, motherfucker. Ooh, wee. Let me fucking run away from his ass. Alright, but yeah. Nope, 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 nope. Definitely not. Definitely not. I'm about to do this shit right here. Right here. Alright, cool. All right. nope, 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 nope. No shit. Alright, cool. We're gonna kill this motherfucking bat if it fucking, well, if it is, I don't want it to kill me. We're gonna kill this fucking bat though. We're definitely gonna kill this fucking bat. Alright, alright. Okay, there it goes. Damn it! Don't fall, motherfucker, no more. Alright, come on, Crimson. Come on. Where did he go? Where the fuck did he go? Where did he fucking go? Shit, there you go, there you go, there you go. God damn it. Let me climb up here. Okay. Okay. Ooh. Shit. Can't get me up here, can you? Shit. Okay, drink me some water. Drink me some water. Whew. Damn it. Maybe if I go up here and shoot. Okay, cool. Ooh. Shit, all my food, my fucking water. Let's see if they got any bugs in here. I got 21 arrows. Okay, cool. Cool. Do I have anything to eat? No. Shit. Come on. How much? Got 5 fucking arrows left? This may be the last arrow. 1 arrow left. Come on. Stamina, stamina! Oh, run away. Fuck! Alright, guys. So, got my ass kicked again by this bat. Come up with a new plan. But I thank everybody who's watching. Enjoy the rest of your night. Peace.